Okay, it's 9 o'clock, a little bit after. We're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry about that little technical issue a little bit. You're going to have to listen to me talk like this. This microphone, for anybody that comes up here and speaks here, this microphone goes into Zoom land so people on the internet can hear us. There is no microphone for the room, so this is voice level here. So I'll do my best. Tell me if I'm not speaking loud enough. And at any point when people want to make public comment, know that you've got to speak up to reach the whole room. So, sorry about that. To begin with, this is the first meeting of the Commercial Aviation Work Group. There's not going to be really decisions made today. We've got a lot of administrative work to go through. So if anybody was here expecting to have fireworks and a lot of excitement, I apologize because I think it might be a little bit boring today. But that's part of it. We'll get started. Of everybody here, there's a good chance that I'm the new guy, so let me introduce myself. My name is Ann Richard. I'm the Aviation Director for WSDOT. If you were a part of or following the CAC, the kind of precursor work to this, David Fleckenstein was the chair of that. He was my predecessor. He retired, and so I came and got this awesome opportunity. I've been on the job for just over a year, and I wanted to start, since I'm the new guy, just giving you a little bit of introduction of myself, and then we'll talk about what we're doing here. I'm a native of Oregon and Washington. I went to elementary school in Lake Forest Park, north of here, and I've got family all the way from Tacoma up to Sequim. But I've been managing airports all across the country and also state aviation director at 3 different states. This was my third one. So I've managed airports in Oregon, Kansas, New York, Nebraska. I've managed state aviation programs in Oregon, Nebraska, and now Washington, and I also worked for a very small airline in Alaska. Part of the reason why I'm telling you that, one, so that you know that I've got a wealth of experience doing this kind of work, but also so you know that I'm from here, and I've been away for a long time, and to be able to come home and be a part of improving the aviation industry and community at my home where my family is really a very special honor for me. So I'm delighted to be here, and I don't want anybody to think I'm a New Yorker, because I'm not. I'm a Washingtonian. I also want to get a little bit into just why we're here, because I know when I talk to people in the public, there's a lot of people that talk about, so you're doing the Airport Siting Commission. That is not what this is. So we're going to spend today talking about what this is, and we'll be talking about that for the next several years, I bet. But it is not the Airport Siting Commission. And the other thing I want to make clear is that this is not a Washington State Department of Transportation work effort. This is your work effort. The community or commercial aviation work group members who are appointed by the governor it's their work group. They've been appointed by the governor. They have their marching orders in legislation, and our role as WSDOT employees is to be your staff, provide the support, make sure things run smoothly for you. So today it kind of looks like I'm the leader, because this is the first time you're all getting together and meeting each other, and so I'm not your leader. I'm your hostess, introducing you all. And as we get more and more into this, I'll disappear into the background while you guys all do the important work. So wanted to set the stage for that. We will have an opportunity for public comment today, because all the way through I want to make sure that everybody feels like they've got a chance to have their voice heard, and I want to make sure that the work group has the opportunity to hear everyone's voices. Since I just said that I'm not the driving force behind this. I am going to take the opportunity that since I do have the quite literally bully pulpit here, to share what my hopes and dreams are for this group. And that is that, and as I said, I'm so happy and delighted to be back home. And so I feel kind of what the personality and the culture is of the Puget Sound region, which is we focus on technology, we focus on environmental preservation and resilience. We've lived under the shadow of the volcanoes forever, and that we work together and we honor each other. And I think that we can solve this problem by using all of those assets, which are who we are as Washingtonians, to find a solution to this problem that's actually a win-win for everybody. I don't think we need to come up with something where there's winners and losers. I think it's obvious that we can come up with a win-win solution. So that's my goal. And since this is going to be probably the last time that I get a chance to stand in front of everybody, I wanted to take this opportunity to share my goal with you. I want to also introduce my team from WashDOT who's here really making all this happen today. So we'll start here. Christina, who's typing madly.
Hello, I'm Christina Crea. I'm the WASA Communications Aviation Manager.
Thank you. Eric?
Good morning. Eric Johnson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Aviation Division.
Good morning. Terry Colombo. I'm the Executive Assistant for WASA Aviation.
Okay, so if you need help from any of us, we're here to help you. So don't forget about us. And then, Eric, can you move to the next slide? Actually, and then one more. Okay, once again, this isn't a WashDOT work effort. This is your work effort. But I wanted to share a tool that we use at WashDOT. It's kind of rules for meetings to make sure that we all get a chance to be heard and nobody feels like they're less than. So it's kind of small print. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this. When you are here, each person brings a unique experience, perspective, and ideas. No one expects you to have all the answers. Learn to be comfortable with very different experiences, perspectives, and ideas. Belonging is co-creation. Every voice matters. Stay engaged and elevate others' voices. The work is hard, but we have to do the work together. It can't be done in silos. Discomfort and anxiety are normal parts of courageous conversations. Pay attention when you're shutting down or becoming distracted. Stay with the topic when you feel discomfort. It's easy to take the conversation someplace else. Resist the urge to change the topic. No one knows everything. Together, we know a lot. Practice humility because we have something to learn from everyone in the room. It also means we all have a responsibility to share what we know as well as our questions so that others may learn from us. Move up, move up. If you're someone who tends to not speak a lot, please move up into a role of speaking more. If you tend to speak a lot, that's me, please move up into a role of listening more. Refrain from long monologues to ensure everyone has a space to speak. The up confirms that in both experiences, either speaking up or shutting up, both experiences, growth is happening. One speaker, one mic. One person speaks at a time. Is this working now? Is that what that means? Not yet. Okay.
We were having some issues with Zoom's audio.
That they can't hear me?
It's just going in and out, so we are
Okay.
working on fixing it right now.
Okay. One person speaks at a time. Leave space in between speakers for those who need more time to process words or are less comfortable fighting for airtime in a conversation. What's said here stays here. What's learned here leaves here. Speak freely as you are comfortable and keep what is said here confidential, but take the lessons you learn and share, apply them outside of the discussion space. I do want to say that these are public meetings, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's members of the press here. So what I just said about what you said is confidential, probably that's not going to apply. And then finally, be curious. Approach conversations and challenges with questions like what if and curiosity. Recognize when you are making assumptions and challenge them by interrupting your own personal biases. So once again, this isn't a rule of the land. This is something that we use at WSDOT that I really, really like. So I wanted to share that. But the work group gets to come up with your own rules. So here's just one example. So that's what I've got to start. Christina's going to give us some meeting tips about how to move through here. And then don't worry, we're going to have a long opportunity for you all to introduce yourselves as well.
1 second, he's trying to plug it in really quick.
Okay.
I just want to make sure.
This is where we play the elevator music.
You're good.
Should I speak over there or
You want?
this should
Can you all hear me? Is this a regular microphone so you can hear me now? Okay.
Representative Dent or Ms. Rubin, can you hear me now? Can you send me a chat and let me know that you are hearing my voice on the Zoom? They said they're still hearing every other word. So should I go up there?
Yeah, sure.
Ann, can you test it? Can you?
For Zoom?
Yeah.
Zoom, test. Is this working? Can you hear?
How about for Ann? Is that mic working better on Zoom? Waiting for her chat.
I apologize for this. This is my worst nightmare right now.
They said not any better on Zoom.
Okay. Close to that?
Move the owl closer
Yeah.
because the owl has audio.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 Zoom people, one more test. Can you let us know if your audio is better now?
Is anyone else also having troubles, or?
I think it's just Zoom. Or yeah, I don't know about their mics.
Like, is anyone else remote having troubles?
Yeah, it says still every other word. I keep saying.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Is anyone here on Zoom that we can test that with?
Are you on Zoom? Do you want to log into the Zoom and?
I guess on your end you could turn your speakers too, right?
Oh, do you want me to unmute
Yeah.
myself and see what?
Well, not unmute, but turn on your sound, your speaker.
How do I do that?
Sorry, I didn't recognize your speaker. Test. Hello? Can it be? Is it pretty clear?
I hear it.
Yeah, you hear it? So I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. We're hearing it from our end. So we are going to continue with the meeting. We apologize if some of the people on Zoom can't hear, but when we tested it on the computer, it seems okay.
Do they got to turn up their sound? On their
Maybe turn
computers?
up their sound. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure. But we are going to continue the meeting.
Okay.
And I did include the TVW links in the chat for those on Zoom. So the TVW is not having any issue. So if you want to tune in there, you can also. But, okay, so I appreciate everyone's patience. Hybrid meetings are a challenge because with all the mics and in person and on Zoom, so appreciate your patience. For those in person, please remain seated and silent throughout the meeting. There will be an opportunity for public comment from 9:30 to 9:50, and I will alternate between in-person and online public comment. For those online, please keep your microphone and video off throughout the whole meeting unless you are called on during public comment. Work group members who are online, please keep your microphone on mute unless you are speaking during the meeting. And if you have a comment or question during the meeting, please use the hand raise button. It should be in the Reactions tab below and Zoom. And as a reminder, members of the public will be muted unless you are called on during public comment, in which I will unmute you to speak. Otherwise, please be respectful during the meeting. And then I think we are waiting. While we're waiting for all the technical difficulties, for those in person, there's 2 exits, one in back and then one right here, and then the bathrooms are out to the left. So if you ever need to go to the bathroom, just feel free whenever you need to. Do you want to go to the next slide? Well, next slide. Okay. Before we get to public comment, I want to talk about the binders that all of the commissioner work group members have. We created this for you. This has a lot of background information and current information, background information about the Commercial Aviation Coordinating Commission, and then current information about this work group. It's a place for you to just have background information, put your notes in. It has your name tag in there, all that good stuff. And I also emailed all of you a link online that has all the documents, and we'll also use that link for any other future documents, so we have it in one place. And online, you can also click links in there. You can't click links, obviously, in the paper. So, yeah, we'll use that, and please keep that binder and take it to every meeting and just use it as a resource for yourself.
Okay, and then finally, just an agenda review so everybody knows what to expect today. And like I said, this is going to be kind of free-flowing today. We'll have public comment so we can start out with just hearing for the members of the work group what the public, what their questions are, what their concerns are. So I know it seems funny to have public comment before anything's happened, but that's exactly the kind of the point today. And then we'll have, after the work gets going, then we'll always have public comment so we can hear what the public thinks about what you're doing. Just so everyone knows, people that are sitting at the tables are appointed voting members of the work group. The work group will be bigger than this. All of the members haven't been appointed yet, so we'll talk about that more throughout the day. Also, ultimately, the work group will include non-voting members, so we'll be talking about that as well. And that's part of why we're not really making any decisions or getting into the meat of the issue today, because we don't have a fully constituted work group yet. So we'll have public comment. After that, I've got a long time on the agenda for members of the work group to introduce themselves and kind of get to know each other as a unit. I have no idea how long that will take, so I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe we'll be done here by lunch today, or maybe we'll go until dark. I just don't know. So I'm ready for anything, and we'll see where you guys lead us. We will have a lunch break. We've provided lunch for members of the work group, but for those of you who aren't members of the work group, we've got some places nearby where you can go to get your own lunch, so people don't feel like you have to sit here and starve. And then in the afternoon after lunch, we'll really get down to what's the mission, what are we trying to accomplish, and what are the rules we're going by. So that's what to expect out of today. Like I said, we're planning to go until 4, but that's a little bit flexible depending on where the work group takes us today. So, Christina, I'm going to let you go ahead and manage the public comment. We will have people, I'm expecting, both from the room here and from the virtual world, and so our plan is to kind of go back and forth. And so if you're in the room, when Christina says, raise your hand, and we'll go from there, and she'll also let the Zoom people know how they can raise their hand as well. Christina.
Thank you, Anne. So we will now start the public comment portion of this meeting. We have 20 minutes, and each person has 2 minutes to speak. If at the end of 2 minutes you go over, I will state your 2 minutes are over and ask you to please wrap up your comment. Please abide by the protocols of the commission meeting in order to help this run smoothly, and I will be alternating between in-person and Zoom. So those in person, if you could come line up over here to the left. And then those online, please use the hand raise tool right now, and I will go in between. So far, I don't see anyone on Zoom raising their hand, but I will keep an eye on it. So for starters, we will start in person. So the first person, please come up to the podium. State your name.
Thank you. My name is Dylan O'Ryan. How long do we have? 2 minutes? So the last time I came to one of these meetings, I actually started with a joke to kind of break the ice. So I'll do that again. Same joke. What does a goat say when he has to repeat himself? Here we goat again. I was hoping I wouldn't have to use that joke, but the reality is that we're kind of back where we started. I'm a resident of the unincorporated portion of southeastern Olympia. My wife and I own a 5-acre lot. We moved to this area from Portland because we wanted to live the rural lifestyle and live in peace and quiet. And we did that started about 3 years ago. In July of 2022, our daughter was born. She's now about 2 years old, and she now shares this place with us. We live here because we found a community of people who want to live the way we do. Many of them have been in our community for decades, and we hope to do the same. Around the time of the anniversary of our moving into our new home here in Thurston County, the first home we've ever owned, we learned that the Washington State Commercial Aviation Coordinating Commission, the CAC, had included our area on a short list of greenfield sites to be the future home of a major international airport on the scale of Sea-Tac. We became involved in the fight to make this not happen. And at the final meeting of the CAC in 2023, in which no candidate site was actually selected, we had high hopes that the process would sort of be rebooted and restarted in a way that involved the comments that were made by members of the public. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have happened. The grassroots group that assembled to fight the CAC never disbanded. In fact, we're stronger than ever, and we're more aware than ever. We had high hopes that the CAC would address the shortcomings of the original, but it seems as if in the first public meeting of the CAWG that's not the case. It appears that we have another band of industry insiders, and the foxes are once again in the henhouse. To conclude, I'd like to say for myself and my family that we're against the development of a new international airport at any location in Western Washington. I also want to say that we are watching, we're not fools, and we will fight this process until it becomes fair and inclusive and commits to never developing a new international airport anywhere in Western Washington.
Thank you. So far, we still don't have anyone online raising their hands. So next person in person, please come to the podium.
My name is Dawn Sontag. As spokesperson for Central Thurston County citizens, as the spokesperson for Stop the Airport, and also speaking for Pierce and South King County residents, I was involved in discussions of House Bill 1791 before it was presented to the Full House Transportation Committee. Our chief requirement for this bill was that the work group was not dominated by the aviation industry, the way the CAC had been, and that citizen voices, environmentalists, and tribal representatives would be included. We had clearly stated that we would not support the bill unless these requirements were met. When the bill was passed, we were assured that they were being met, and so we supported the bill. However, the current constitution of this group is destroying what little trust we had. If there's a good explanation, then we would ask that the respect that we deserve be shown to us and that we be given an explanation. We are not children or obstacles to be pushed aside. As someone who has lived in 10 major cities across the U.S. and in Europe, and who is now a resident of rural Thurston County and is very close with the members of this community, I now understand why rural citizens feel disenfranchised. As this work group convenes and begins discussions, I hope the members are aware of how cognitive dissonance can occur with power, privilege, and lack of objective accountability. Our trust can be earned with transparency and respect. If we are stonewalled or given platitudes when we ask for explanations, we will draw logical conclusions and will take appropriate legislative action. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in person.
Hello, my name is Jim Pearson. I'm a resident of Thurston County. My house was one of 1,600 houses that were within this 6-mile circle that was called the Thurston County Central Green Field. I have a couple asks here, but first is, of the members that are here and online, can I see show of hands? Anyone that is a resident of one of those 6 circles? Okay, other than the back of the room, no hands. Anybody online that was a board member? No. Okay, so I have one ask for the group here, the members. The word greenfield. Don't inherit it. Don't use it. Don't explain it to us about meaning something other than what we all see. When we think of greenfield, we think of cows and prairies and maybe some trees. We don't think of 1,600 homes. We don't think of 1,600 families in one circle. Multiply that by 6. So don't use the word green field. Find something else. Use another term, because when we hear the word green field, when we hear our homes, what we think of is impact zone. Because to us, it's an impact, right? Financially, emotionally, everything else. Just don't use the word. Find something else that actually means what you mean it to mean. Okay? And that's it. That's all I have to ask for today. Thank you.
Next in person, and then get a little bit closer to the black mic. Just a little bit for those in Zoom.
This one?
Yes, please. Just a little closer. Thank you so much.
Okay, my name's Steve Palmer. I, like many of the others, live in southern Thurston County. I'm here to basically tell the working group that you have a very important job to do, and that is essentially to come up with some sort of solution to what is going to become a problem, which is the lack of commercial aviation flights at a certain point in the Puget Sound region. I also can speak as someone like the first gentleman here who 30 years ago with his wife bought a house in what turned out to be a designated international airport site when this whole process was done before in the mid-90s. It was done by the Puget Sound Regional Council. It selected 9 sites in the greater Puget Sound area, did actually a much more thorough environmental analysis, including noise footprint modeling, to basically come up with 2 selected sites. One south of here they called it the Black Lake site along I-5 south of Tumwater. The second site at the very north end of the I-5 corridor in Snohomish County at the Arlington Airport. Interestingly enough, this latest round exhibits one of the finest examples of legislative NIMBYism around, which was to exclude Snohomish County in the consideration of the Arlington site, which is still a very viable site if you want to build an international airport. I think really what we need to do is take a look at how the San Francisco and Los Angeles regions have dealt with increasing air flight capacity starting in the 1960s. At that point, I lived in the San Francisco area, at that point as a fairly young man, and San Francisco Airport was running out of capacity. That capacity was absorbed by Oakland Airport for the next decade or two, and then a number of other regional airports, San Jose, which services the Silicon Valley, Sacramento, Santa Rosa, all came into existence. And in fact, the issue of air capacity at San Francisco International went away. I I think that this is also the case for Los Angeles if you look at their development, but I didn't live there. But they have a number of smaller regional airports that service things, and I think that that needs to be seriously looked at in terms of options here. I think we also need to take a look at Sea-Tac Airport, exactly what sort of types of passenger transport are actually undergoing. How much of the traffic through Sea-Tac Airport really is just a domestic hub for Hawaiian or Alaskan or overseas flights? That is, the passengers fly in from somewhere in the U.S. and fly out without ever leaving the airport. That, to me, adds almost nothing to the Washington state economy, and certainly should be deprioritized with the precious airspace that does exist in the Puget Sound. I think ultimately the answer is that this group will have to come up with a solution that depends on using the existing resources rather than some pie-in-the-sky mega project that would record not only an airport construction out of the blue, but also the transportation network in order to get to the airport. I'll give you a really quick example of my use and how I would really like to see airplane travel. I recently had work down in the Klamath Falls area. It's a long drive. I needed a car once I got there, but how I accomplished it was to drive to Portland, which, by the way, is the airport I use, not Sea-Tac, because it's a dependable hour-and-a-half commute for me. Then fly to Medford, where I would pick up a rental car and drive to Klamath Falls. The ideal air transport model would have been to have caught an air taxi in Olympia, flown to Portland, flown the commercial flight to Medford, and then flown an air taxi from there to Klamath Falls. And I air taxi somewhat like Kenmore Air, using electric powered aviation. That would have made my life a whole lot easier, and it would have gotten me there a whole lot faster. That's it.
Thank you. So we do have some hands raised online, so I'm going to unmute Maria. Give me one moment.
My name is
Hey,
Maria
you are
Batiola.
unmuted, so you should be able to speak.
I'm an immigrant. I chair Beacon Hill Council. We're
Yes, we
impacted
can
by
hear you.
airports. And I'm an applicant for the work group to represent Front and Centered, a statewide environmental justice council. And for identification purposes only, I co-chair the State Environmental Justice Council. We're very excited with the task the governor and the legislature gave you to meet commercial aviation and transportation needs in our state. Since community and environmental representatives have yet to be appointed, I respectfully ask each and every one of you 5 things. Number 1, please include the HEAL Act and Climate Commitments Act intent and requirements in the scope of work for healthy environment for all and greenhouse gas reduction. Number 2, please fully appreciate the tangible impact of transportation as the physical connector for people in need and others to jobs, education, childcare, housing, healthcare. The access to these social determinants have been proven to lift up and improve the lives of those in need. Third, please adopt a scope of work as a draft so we, as community environmental representatives, when appointed, will have a chance to weigh in. Fourth, please adopt a co-chair leadership model. Again, so we as community environmental representatives can co-lead as an equal partner in this wonderful initiative that has 7+ generations of impacts. And 5, please act as a collective. I'm Filipino. In Tagalog, we have a word, kami, just us, as opposed to tayo, that includes us and all of you. Let's be a tayo as an intertwined airport, environment, and community entity. Governor Inslee is harnessing brilliance for the future of Washington, again, as I've said, beyond 7 generations. We're all in this together, And yes, we can. Thank you for the time. Beyond 7 generations. We're all in this together, and yes, we can. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Maria. Next in person.
Good morning. My name is Ursula Euler. I have been a CAC observer, one of the few citizen observers of the CAC since early 2020. I've been at every meeting. I've seen every action, whether it was good or bad. I'm here today because transportation is certainly a very important topic, and looking at it from a multimodal aspect is very important. I wonder, however, this is a commercial aviation work group. Could we please have, when the citizen representatives who have been appointed so far, could you please also include in your own introduction what your affiliation is with the aviation industry? I also would like to ask the question of Ann Richard, or whoever Ann Richard would like to appoint for that, is how is WashDOT organized? WashDOT has an aviation division. Does WashDOT have a rail division, a road transportation division? And why are we here looking at transportation as a big picture when it is overseen by, with all due respect, the director of the aviation division? They are just not the right people at the table. I also would like to ask that since you're organizing yourself this morning, the CAC also had non-voting members. And to my great surprise, they were actually allowed to vote on very many important topics, including the guiding principles of the CAC. I would ask that this group keep non-voting members non-voting. That's why they are appointed by you, not to also start voting on some topics that they have no business voting on because they were not appointed by an elected official like the governor. Those are the comments for this morning. I will continue to observe the process very closely. I consider myself participating actively in democracy. Democracy means that government should represent people and not commercial interests. And that's not what is happening. It's happening everywhere, in every system of the United States government. But aviation is just an incredibly big and complex example of that, including going all the way to the FAA, which is a captured agency for the last 40 years. And we need to start getting government back to work for people. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to someone who raised their hand online. Julie, I will unmute you.
To unmute yourself now.
To unmute yourself now.
Julie, you might need to press the unmute button. Okay, while Julie figures that out, I'm going to go to Brenda. Asking you to unmute.
Okay, while Julie figures that out, I'm going to go to Brenda.
Opposed to any airport, international, commercial in the East Olympia area. My grandsons are 5th generation.
Hi, my name is Julie Winchell, and I usually live.
Unmute yourself now.
I thought I did. I did that.
Let's let the other person finish, and then Julie, you will go next. Thank you. Okay, while Julie figures that out, I'm going to go to Brenda. Okay. Brenda, can you continue with your comment? Okay, it looks like Brenda is out there. Okay, Julie, go ahead and say your. Julie, you are unmuted, so you should be able to speak. Okay, we're going to go to the next person, Janet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
My name is Janet Witt. I live in Olympia, Washington. I live in a small regional airport community. The Olympia Regional Airport is located within 5 miles of downtown Olympia. Flight paths go over densely populated residential areas, schools, parks. The Olympia Airport is not a place to expand an airport. I ask that this work group please consider alternatives to aviation, other transportation alternatives. We are experiencing a climate emergency. I think that it's very important that aviation growth be curtailed in general, that people look at different ways of living and transporting themselves other than aviation. A recent study by King County Public Health, as most of you are likely aware, indicated serious public health risks associated with Sea-Tac operations, and yet Sea-Tac continues to be expanded. That seems illogical to me. It does not make sense that you're expanding airports in areas where people's public health will be impacted. I don't care if that's a greenfield airport or Sea-Tac airport or a regional airport. I believe that growth in aviation, unfettered growth, needs to cease, and that we need to look at more sustainable ways of living and other means of transportation, such as high-speed rail. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next person. In person, other comments?
Good morning. My name is Scott Lay.
Thank you. We will go to the next person. In person to public comment.
Good morning. My name is Scott Lay. I'm from Tacoma. I had the privilege and opportunity last year to be a part of the coalition group steering committee that formed for the Greenfield site out by Roy, Eatonville, Yelm area. It's nice to see some people this morning that really stood up last year. I'm hopeful that the angst and anxiety that I hear in their voice does not forebode the same type of issues that came out of the previous efforts. Those efforts were misguided, misplaced, and doomed to fail because the people that were going to be impacted by that simply are not going to sit for it. And I just want to be here and say, be mindful about what you're doing. Be deliberate. Be transparent. If you're going to have a meeting that lasts 8 hours, 20 minutes of comment isn't sufficient. The CAC ran into trouble with that when their technicalities or the technical issues of getting people to speak and time constraints fostered an environment and attitude of mistrust and a feeling that you were simply, or they were simply trying to ram forward something that tens of thousands of people impacted by it didn't want. So these 20-minute intervals of public comment in an 8-hour meeting, you could do an hour's worth of them spaced through something like this and give people more opportunity to feel like they can participate. The last thing I want to say, again, back to the way people feel about this, because it was really frustrating. I don't live in one of the Greenfield sites. My family has had property out in the Eatonville area for nearly 100 years. They're still rooted there. It was nerve-wracking. And I just encourage all of you to understand that that's how people are feeling. Retired people, working people, business people, people who just want to live in those environments without the impact of something that the CAC had proposed. I'm not assuming that's where you're headed, but please be mindful of it. And one last thing, I want to thank our county council member, Amy Kruger, who is in the room this morning with us, just on her own, spending the day taking note of what's happening. Our county council in Pierce County made a tremendous effort to let our voices be heard and stood with the people of their county, and I just want to acknowledge that. So thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two more people online who raised their hand. Julie and Brenda, I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. First, we'll start with Julie, and I'm going to give you a few seconds. Hopefully, you figured out the technical difficulties you were having. So, Julie, I'm going to click your name first. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
I'm living in Mesa, Arizona, in the flight path of the Sky Harbor Phoenix Airport due to a family emergency. I wasn't planning on speaking until Mr. Palmer said that you should look again at the Arlington Airport. And he mentioned that in the early 90s, it was considered. And it was considered before the third runway was built at Sea-Tac. And there was an EIS done on the Arlington Airport, expanding its use as a commercial airport. I spent hours reviewing that EIS. A neighbor, my husband and I organized our community against that site. Several hundred people turned out at the public hearing, all in opposition to that site, except for one person who spoke in favor of expanding it. I'm here to tell you that we don't want a commercial airport in Arlington. We didn't want it then, and the people I know don't want it now. So, and Mr. Palmer is incorrect. The CAC did look at a site near Arlington. It was just across the freeway, across I-5 from our house and our 10 acres of woods. So I, too, was nervous about that when it was looked at. I don't understand why they're looking at northern Snohomish County when Painfield already is having problems securing another airlines to service passengers since United left. They only have Alaska, and I believe there's an airlines from Kenmore Air that flies to the San Juan Islands. So Painfield could expand, but more than that, I just wanted to say, in addition to now living in the flight path of the Phoenix Airport, I taught in Moses Lake in the late 70s in the flight path of the old Air Force Base at Ephrata, where Japan Airlines was training their Boeing pilots. I don't ever want to live under an airport again. So my suggestion to the Commercial Aviation Work Group is that you include on your work group a representative from the Climate Rail Alliance, which is a group of citizens that are working to increase the use of rail to move both people and cargo. And they have lots of information that I don't have, but they could be useful in thinking of alternative ways to move people in and out of our region and around our region. It seems rather narrow-minded that we're only looking at using more commercial airlines and looking for a new airport rather than looking at other alternatives. So I would suggest that you do that. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have one more person and person who would like to do public comment, please.
I would suggest that you do that. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have one more person in person who would like to do public comment. Please come up to the podium.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Walther. I'm a resident of the Thurston County Greenfield proposed airport site. Has anybody else noticed that it seems to be the lake communities, the water rights that they seem to be after, not specifically just our homes? In addition to being a resident there, I also represent one of 4 plumbing companies that are in the Greenfield Circle. Now, we already have a shortage of plumbers in the Olympia area. What do you think is going to happen if we go shutting down 4 plumbing companies that are in that circle? We're going to have another issue on our hands, not just a shortage of flights. So I understand that there is an issue that needs to be resolved. When I found the community that I decided to purchase a home in 2013, it was a beautiful community, and I have spent half of my career working to be able to afford a home in that community. 3 years ago, I buried my dog in that backyard. I have started and built my business out of the community. If you think that you are going to take my home, if you think that you are going to take my business, we will fight. We will fight. We will fight. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have one last person. This is the last person we will take for public comment online. Brenda, I am going to allow you to unmute yourself. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Brenda.
Thank you. I'm having a lot of difficulty hearing what's being actually said on my end. I want to let you know that I was born here in Olympia in 1956, and I have been in East Olympia most of my life. I share the early development history of our area, and the community was very diligent in the development of this area. We have the depot here. Chambers Prairie was historically the depot that was here. I share this information with our elementary school, and you can find some of the tidbits of history on that site. When I was growing up in East Olympia, it was not a very preferred location. But we do have the Deschutes River, and we have wildlife here. We have bald eagles, we have deer, we have fish in the rivers. I cannot understand why anyone would study or cite an airport in this area when our climate is being naturally mitigated through our environment, our natural God-given nature. I just don't understand why people would want to lay cement over such a beautiful site that offers forest bathing and the natural beauty that actually tourists would want to have. Especially, I would like to ask you what this group's end goal is. What is the end goal? Because I would like you to study the one and only site that was offered that they wanted, and that's in Yakima. My grandsons are 5th generation East Olympians. And the greater good to me is to preserve our natural environment. And I have been opposed to this from the very beginning. I have tons of communication, and it should be a map of record. I don't know if you get the tax records or not, but I would suggest looking at the legislative part of the emails, the tax emails. I do not see what your goal is.
Thank you, Brenda. We are now going to take a 5-minute break. For those on Zoom who say the audio goes in and out, we are going to have our technical team come in. So we will be back in about 5 minutes. Thank you for your patience and understanding.
Until lunchtime to do this, so we'll see if we need that much time or not. But what I'm going to do is just start at this end. Charlie Reardon, ask you to introduce yourself and why you're here, who you're representing, what your thoughts are. And I really want the work group to take the opportunity not only to introduce yourselves, but to have a little bit of discussion, because this is your opportunity to get to know each other and understand how you're going to work together as a group. It may be awkward, but please make sure you speak into the mic so that people online can hear us. And we do have at least one work group member online, so they'll be joining us this way too. So, Charlie, go ahead.
Thank you. You want me to speak from here or just into this mic?
Yeah.
I'm Charlie Reardon. I run a little boutique airport planning company called American Aviation Professionals, do airport planning. I have a wide and varied experience in aviation. My first job out of college was from Indiana University. I took an airport planning degree. I was an airport planner down with the Houston-Galveston Area Council of Governments. Then moved to the city of Houston, was an airport planner for them, and then an airport planner with the state of Texas. And then had a passion for flying and became a flight instructor and chased the airlines, flown for the airlines, and done some flying work as well. I joined this committee because I'm a Seattle resident. I actually live in Auburn, and so close to here. I know that there's capacity issues coming at Sea-Tac. I know that in the future, the demographics is going to grow. Like, the population is going to increase. So air travel is going to continue to grow, and capacity is an issue. So we have to do something about that. What's going to happen if we do nothing? Something has to be done. Okay. So I'd like for this group to take an objective approach to looking at all of the various things that can be done. We heard multimodal transportation. So there was rail. There's different airports. We got Portland, we got Sea-Tac, we got Vancouver, all the large airports that can be considered as, from a regional perspective on this side of the Cascades, up and down I-5, looking at how can we maximize the use of those airports while we're trying to figure out what to do in the future for this. This is not going to be a fast process. In my mind, this is not going to be a fast process. This is a long-term look at solving this problem. I was not involved with the last project, not totally up to speed on what everyone is talking about. I think that some of the comments I heard today, this morning, were mostly about Olympia, a little bit about Arlington. I think these meetings need to be spread out throughout the state in the future so that we get the representatives from those areas as well. I mean, this has got to be a project that's seriously and objectively looked at from all our perspectives. Let's talk about, I'd like to see what are the costs if we do nothing? What's going to happen to the cruise ship industries? Is Sea-Tac going to end up going to slots like the East Coast? Flight slots. The airline's got to have, you can only have so many operations in and out. I mean, there is going to be, something will have to happen one way or another. If we decide to do nothing from increasing capacity from some perspective, whether it's a new airport or finding some creative way to solve the capacity issues, something's going to happen. And what will be the cost, though? I'd like to see somehow what would be the cost if we don't do anything. My position is to take an open look at this. I have ideas. I have thoughts. I'm not prepared to lay those out. They're not ready for prime time. I'd like to see what we're doing with this committee. I don't know what the working structure is going to be for this committee. What are our goals? Someone asked what our goals are. Well, I think we're going to find those out in due time. But my perspective here is I want to improve the state of Washington. I want to see 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now that the state of Washington is in the best position it can be in to serve the traveling public, the economy of communities, and now the people that live here. That's my position. Thank you. Thank you.
Just want to go around the room? Okay. My name is Neil Streggy. I'm with an organization called the Washington Roundtable. We are a nonprofit business association representing senior executives from Washington's largest employers. And we work on the things that are most common to them at the state level in thinking about what's the intersection of what's good for the economy of Washington State and what's good for the state as a whole, people of the state. And that typically manifests itself in issues like education, transportation, housing, those sorts of issues that are important to the overall community of Washington State, which affect the company's ability to recruit talent and and thrive as a business, but also things that impact the overall livability of the state. As part of our work on transportation, aviation has started to bubble up as an issue that is on the minds of business people. I think there's general concern that at some point Sea-Tac will be so constrained as to not allow for growth in the economy, growth of travel, and that will have an impact on economic growth, ability of companies to thrive in this region. I asked to join this group. I did follow the CAC process to some degree. I asked to join this group because I felt like there was a lack of an overall view of the economy and the state. There's a lot of representative of the aviation industry, of the freight industry, those sorts of things. But looking at the big picture, I agree with what Charles said. What happens if we don't do anything? I think we should really deep dive on that, but not only from the standpoint of physically what happens to Sea-Tac and the airspace becomes constrained, but also what happens to our economy and what happens of the ability of the public to do what they want to do. And I think about the basic law of supply and demand says that when you have a constrained supply, you have higher prices, and so I really feel like the impacts on the community as a whole should be examined from the perspective of what will it cost to fly when Sea-Tac is fully constrained, and what impact will that have on the people of Washington State and their expectations of what they should have. In addition to the overall economics, what will the impact be on our economy, on our quality of life? And so I think all those things should be considered. And then I agree with Charles that I believe the second iteration of a commercial aviation work group was designed to sort of take a step back and say, don't choose one side. Give us more information on a range of options, and start from the beginning and go back and look at all the different options. So that's the way that I'm approaching the work. I will at some point we'll have a discussion maybe about what the goals are and what the work plan is. But that's how I'm thinking of it: is start from square one and look at all the options and provide the legislature with information about what are the pros and cons of all of these things.
Hi, my name is Alicia Frank. I am a resident of Snohomish County. Oh, it's got to be this one? Okay, sorry. So my name is Alicia Crank. I'm a resident of Snohomish County. I actually live in Edmonds for about the past 10 years. My day job is the executive director of a civic engagement nonprofit called Seattle City Club. And this is my third kind of iteration and kind of going through this work. I grew up in Michigan. Then I spent 18 years in Silicon Valley, which is actually where I got my first kind of taste and experience around land use and aviation, as someone who used San Jose Airport a lot and wanted to avoid flying out of SFO like the plague. And then when I moved here in 2014, really just decided I wanted to spend more time learning more about land use and aviation. So I spent 5 years on the Edmonds Planning Board, the last year as their chair. I was appointed to and spent 5 years on the Snohomish County Airport Commission, right when the commercial airport was getting ready to open, and our two goals were to, one, be able to help kind of usher in the opening of that commercial airport, but also to be there to be an advocate for residents and general aviation tenants that were also there. 3 years as their vice chair, and then 2 years as chair before I rolled off. I also spent time on Snohomish County Tomorrow Group, which is also around land use as well, which is very important in the discussions that we're having around airport expansion. I applied for this back in 2019, so I was actually surprised to get appointed to the work group. I got a random email in January and said, "You're on it." I'm like, great. So I'm glad that we're finally able to get together and start having a meeting. I'm looking forward to kind of learning more about what's happened that's up to this point, what this work group wants to be able to accomplish based on the parameters of the definition of what this work group was supposed to be. And as a citizen rep, I take that very seriously. As someone who was a lay person, not everyone can be an industry person, nor does everyone have the time to come and be at an event, meeting all day during a work day to be able to do that. One of my goals too, as the citizen rep, is to be able to be representative, because clearly, all the times I've served on different boards and commissions around these things, I'm usually the only female or the only person of color, and that still is resonating today. And so I want to make sure that as that citizen rep, that I can make sure that those who are women and or persons of color who are not usually paying attention or following this work can know that there is somebody there that will help kind of regurgitate that information, share it back with them, and bring it back in. So I heard a lot of that being spoken about during the public comments, and those are in line with my goals and what I would like to be able to do as part of this work group.
Can't top that. Good morning. My name is Rich Mueller. I'm the airport director for the Grant County International Airport, which is in Moses Lake, Washington, which has been mentioned a couple times already. About myself, in addition to being the airport director, I'm also a flight instructor. I also am a captain in the Civil Air Patrol. Most importantly, though, I'm a husband and father. I hear people talking about buying their first home and having a few acres and things like that. I absolutely get that. Got to do that here a few years ago, actually in Moses Lake, first place I owned a house, so I understand that. I also like the fact that here, only just a couple hours into it this morning, we've heard every idea from, let's reduce flying to let's do nothing to let's do something somewhere else to let's try something entirely different. Let's look at trains and things like that. So, that's the kind of group that I want to be involved in. I don't want this to just be kind of a son of CAC. I want to make sure that all of us in this group are able to, yes, take what we've learned from that, but we clearly have our marching orders from everyone that there's a lot of scrutiny on this, that we want to make sure that we do take everything into consideration. And I think the answer is certainly a little bit of everything I've heard talk about, increased efficiencies. How can we do the best? We need to be good stewards of what we have, both, everything from the trees and the woods to the aviation and the airspace that we have now. I think everybody wants to husband those resources we have, so that doesn't have to be in conflict. So I look forward to continuing these conversations. I'm hoping that the folks that are here at the table, I think this is going to be a pretty good group. For you folks over here in the chairs, absolutely, we want to keep hearing from you. And the other thing I'd encourage you is that pure democracy means just the most people with the loudest voice wins, and we want this to be a lot more collaborative than that. So, want to hear your voices. Encourage you to, yes, get your groups together and bring representatives here at every meeting so we can hear those voices as well. Thank you.
So for the next introduction, we'd like to go to Larry Crowder, who is online right now. So Larry, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Larry Crowder, I'm the CEO of Spokane Airports. We operate Spokane International Airport, Phelps Field, and the Airport Business Park. And I'm delighted to be included with such a remarkable group of professionals on this working group. And looking forward to our next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And then we're going to go to Ms. Rubin, who is also on Zoom. Please unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Good morning. This is Gitanjali Rubin, and I apologize. My video is not on. I have a severe eye infection, which I don't think is for public display. That being said, I'm very excited to be here. I'm an undergrad and a master's recipient from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and I've had the great fortune of spending about 30 years in aviation and aerospace. A lot of that has been working with airports domestically as well as internationally. I've served on both sides, whether it be the business side of it or as the commissioner for the airport and collaborating with the constituents and the public that we serve. So I look for a great opportunity here to bring that experience and to collaborate with everyone to find a solution for a very big problem or a challenge. And I think having all the voices heard and having this opportunity to collaborate will help us get there. Thank you. Having this opportunity to collaborate will help us get there. Thank you.
Horace Dunham. I'm one of the citizens' representatives. As one of the people that spoke, asked what my affiliation with airports is. A little bit. I was the director of Sea-Tac, Los Angeles, Dallas-Fort Worth, and then I had a good job. I moved to Geneva, Switzerland, and I represented all the world's airports to the United Nations. During that time, I had a chance to travel the world. And the reason I applied for this committee is that I think I can bring something to it, having seen the good and the bad around the world, how people get to airports, how people use airports, where it works best in the community and where it doesn't work in the community. We're in an entirely different view today than what we were 20 years ago or 50 years ago when I moved here. I came here in 1969, and after 25 years ago, we moved back from Switzerland because we loved Washington State, and that's why we're here, and that's why we want to stay here, and we want to make it a better place than what we found 50 years ago, and I think we can do that. The environment now has changed so much when you deal with aviation or transportation in general. There's technology, there's sustainability, there is multimodal. All of these things have to come in to any decision you make. It can't just be about where the airplane lands. It's how you get there, how you get away from there, how you get the people, what commerce is going to do. What do you need? It's not just people, there's cargo. You know, how do you handle the cargo that's needed to get you the items that you want to use in your life? And they're not all made in the state of Washington. So how do we get that? Basically, are they going to come by train, by boat, by air? And there's going to be a piece of all of that. I think the key that we have as a committee is to look at what the requirements are. One of the things that intrigued me about the committee was to look at what the needs of the state. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised when I hear the only thing we're talking about today is a reliever for Sea-Tac. 50 years ago when I was running Sea-Tac, it was 40 years ago when I was actually running it, I'd been there for 10 years, we were looking at other locations at that time. We knew it wasn't going to last by itself forever in one spot. But obviously, Payne Field has come up now, and that's going to take some of the load off. Believe me, when at LAX, we had 4 airports under the LAWA system. Nobody really wanted it. Ontario was similar to what Payne Field is now. Nobody wanted to go out there, and now it's the fastest growing airport in Southern California. So things will change as we go along. Our job, I think, at this committee is to find a way that we can make the state a better recipient of the growth that we're going to see in the future. And I don't think it's any one thing. And for my mind, there's no place that's been chosen. I was a bit surprised, I guess I shouldn't have been, that all we wanted to talk about was a reliever for Sea-Tac, because I didn't see that as really the charge of this committee, even though it is one of the things I know will come out of it, I hope. But I think there's a lot of other things we get a chance to look at. And I will open to hear what anybody says anytime, and I really appreciate hearing your views. I've made notes on everybody that has made a comment, and we will make sure we follow what you ask.
Good morning. Arif Gauss. I am part of the leadership team at Sea-Tac right now. And my background, started my airport career in the UK, worked at the 7 airport system, including the 3 London airports, and then moved to Texas and worked at the 3 airport system in Houston, and then came to Sea-Tac. and also have some experience in the maritime world in between the aviation. Oris said a lot of good things there. I don't want to have to repeat everything on that. I mean, my main purpose of being on this committee is to see how we can balance the needs of the traveling public who are clearly demanding that they have access to air travel. But at the same time, how do we accommodate that need by taking care of the environment as well and the citizens who live in the state, right? It's a difficult task. There's no simple answers. Aris just mentioned we've been looking at this for decades in terms of how do we cite or grow aviation in some other areas. The fact is, though, right now people want to continue to fly. The businesses in this state want to continue to grow, but we have people who live here and that want to take care of their communities. So we got to get our heads together and figure out how do we balance those needs and come up with solutions. And it's going to be, not an easy task for us. So thank you.
My name is Buck Taft. Everything you'll see says Donald. Maybe we can change that. Donald's my official name, but Buck's what I've been called since birth by everyone. I'm the director of the Tri-Cities Airport in Pasco, Washington. I've got over 20 years experience from small commercial service airports all the way up to large hub. I worked at Fort Lauderdale Airport International in Florida for a few years. I've been in the Tri-Cities for 13 years. I feel I'm an aviation professional. I care about airports. I care about the community, and I started following this issue last year, and I wanted to be part of this group because I wanted to. I know I am how I approach things, and I know I'm flexible and open, and I want to take everything into account. Everyone has said so many good things, Charles or Sarif, on I feel a lot of the same ways and taking a lot of the same things into account, and I just want to make sure. I just wanted to be here because I felt I could lend some good things to the group and hopefully guide us and help guide in the right direction. So that's all.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Evan Norby. I'm a citizen representative on the committee. I grew up in Utah and Bainbridge Island, turned Western Washington at college and law school. So I feel like I come to the committee with a good handle on the people, geography, the values of Western Washington, environmental values, innovation and forward-looking ideas, and also citizen participation, democracy, and interests of great deal of emphasis on interests of people. I've spent my entire career in public service. I'm a federal administrative law judge and an Army Reserve officer. I'm a frequent traveler in both of those roles as well as for fun. And to be clear, I'm on leave today from my day job. But my day jobs involve gathering and evaluating evidence and deciding. I'm also trying to be here for my job. So one of the commenters asked about ties to the aviation industry. Professionally, I cite aviation whistleblower cases. And I can't talk about. I also live under the flight path of Boeing Field in West Seattle for light aircraft approaching the field from the west. And as a kid, I liked airplanes. I'm not surprised in Western Washington. I think that our name of this committee isn't a really neat fit with the charge we've been given by the legislature. Because right there in charge from the legislature is that we are to evaluate full range of multimodal options as well as evaluating possible future needs for airport. And as part of what attracted me to this was the broader mandate and that given to the prior commission. We can look at things such as the parallel process with respect to Amtrak cascades and cross state rail upgrades. We can look at, we're really charged to look at moving people and moving goods and not just where should we put their, which was essentially the charge of the prior commission. So I'm looking forward to, I have some ideas, obviously, but I'm looking forward to learning from the other members of the committee and from the public
suggest that
Can I ask a question?
this is really the work group's work time, not
I just wanted to know if there are any other permanent members to this work group than the ones we've seen here, or
we are going to cover the work group membership, but right now there's 2 online and the people here, and there's 1 more that we haven't heard from today. But there are seats yet unappointed, and we will
so we've heard so far from most of the representatives.
So as we're doing this introduction part, I'm ready to move on and not have lunch at 10:30 in the morning. But I wanted to give you all an opportunity to engage a little bit more. You've all introduced yourselves. Do you have questions for each other, for anybody? Kind of like some get to know each other.
I have a follow-up comment. So I have a question and a comment, which is, I'm curious to know, especially of those who were on the previous iterations of this group, how much accessibility played a role in the discussions around access and what we're going to potentially, hopefully, be able to talk about in this work group. So I think that's another area of folks that don't necessarily get representation or have things discussed around how it is for them. So those, whether it's physical accessibility, so people in wheelchairs, people that are, using canes or just have some kind of physical ailment that, it makes it slower or longer for them to be able to access public transportation. And we don't even have to go into the sidewalk situation in some places. But I don't know to what degree that was brought into the previous discussions leading up to this work group. So that's a question, but my comment is I hope that we will also do that in this group as we talk about multimodal and other aspects of this. Is, are we factoring in, senior citizens or just making sure that we're talking about it not just from a general able-bodied driver's license carrying person, but that we're looking at it from various aspects other than our own physical situations.
That's great. I agree with that, and I want to also add comments for younger people and people who can't take time to comment in a day-long meeting in a drunk weekday. That way, we should consider evening meetings and meetings around the state, as something else mentioned, to try to get as much comment as possible from the entirety of the community.
I'm happy to host one of Moses Lake. Be sure to drive that time.
And I have a question, and really it's to our people who are here visiting. I assume after listening to your comments that what you believe, and I would just like to ask a question, all of you who believe that the only purpose of this committee is to find a replacement for Sea-Tac, would you raise your hand?
We don't believe that. We know that. However, we have observed that we have in the past, we have been told one thing and then something else happened.
Okay. The only comments came from that standpoint that it was against what they wanted to pick before, and I was worried that what we were looking at was everybody thinking that's the only reason for this committee. And I don't think that's the reason we're here, and I don't want it to be the reason we're here.
I think the weight and the balance of the people at the table and online is very aviation focused, and I think that lends itself to further angst from people who live
I understand.
in those. It lends itself to further angst for the people that live in those circles that we've all tried to forget about. So when you ask that question, why is that still a driving motivator? I think that's definitely it. There's not yet to be an environmentalist on this panel or commission, and if anybody was listening to the town halls and testimony during the PAC's iteration, you would know clearly that the environmental impacts were the top of the list for both groups that formed cohesively, and then the individuals who stepped forward to testify and participate. So when we see all the experts and heads of airports on this commission, I would think that that really throws people back into that mode of, well, here we go again.
And one thing I wanted to say, just because I'm hearing this, is there's seats that are not filled. So are people not applying? And I don't know that because, I don't know that, but there are environmental seats. And being from Eastern Washington, I was shocked when there was no environmental person on here because I figured that would have been the easiest one to fill. So, when you look at what the makeup's supposed to be, I feel it's supposed to be well-rounded. It's just not all the seats are filled yet, is how I see it. But
If someone speaks, can they give them a mic?
No, well, this is supposed to be the work group meeting, not the public comment period. So I think a lot of these questions right now, we're going to answer as we go through. So I'm going to recommend that we just start moving through kind of the presentations, which is why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing? But the same thing for the work group members. This is for you, and this is your opportunity to start your work. So I've been studying this stuff for a year. So I'm going to share with you what I've kind of gleaned. But this is, again, not about me. So I want this to be interactive. And if you've got questions or comments as we go through, this is your opportunity. And we're jumping ahead in the agenda, but I promise we'll take a break for lunch.
Forgive me for being out of order. I just have to say, Mr. Dunham just struck on a good point about engaging with the people. And while I respect the fact that you've all traveled for some distance and taken time out of your lives, that right there will make a huge difference. Turning to the folks whose lives are impacted directly and allowing it to be. If they are wanting to engage with us and let us do that through the course of these activities and events and meetings, that is going to be the most productive thing to have happen when it comes down to whatever decision-making process you determine you're going to do. So thank you. And please don't hold that back, because Mr. Hendrickson and the CAC did that to great detriment.
Thank you very much. Are you all ready to move ahead? Okay, so if you move forward to where, like after lunch, Eric, here we go. And so I've kind of got some notes here to just kind of get us started. And so from the introduction, I've got some ideas here, and this is all out of the legislation. So this is what the bill tells us to do. And as we go through this, you're going to see some differences, and I think this is part of what we've been hearing already this morning. The bill was written and passed by the legislature. Then it went to the governor's office, and he made some significant vetoes. So the final product wasn't what the legislature voted on, but it's also wasn't written by the governor. So as long as everybody understands that what we've got is the result of a process here that appointed you guys to figure this out, that's what I'm hoping kind of everybody gets out of today. So first off, and this is directly out of the legislation, the legislature finds that the state's transportation needs are growing, and it's imperative that the state plan comprehensively to meet the needs of its citizens, particularly in the fastest growing regions in the state. That planning for the future of aviation must take a comprehensive, coordinated look at the transportation system as a whole. So we've already talked about multimodalism a lot, and the bill understands that. Then looking back a little bit, the pandemic interfered with the ability of the Commercial Aviation Coordinating Commission to perform a thorough and complete study of the possibility of a new commercial airport. The creation of a new primary commercial aviation facility has the potential for environmental, health, social, and economic impacts on the surrounding communities, and the legislature recognizes any preferred location will require substantial environmental, land use, governance, and funding decisions from federal, state, and local governments. So the legislature did hear from people speaking, during the CAC times. There is expected growth in commercial aviation, general aviation, and air cargo operations. The Puget Sound Regional Council May 2021 Regional Aviation Baseline Study final report estimates that by 2050, capacity restrictions in the central Puget Sound will create a gap between the demand for aviation activities and the capacity for those activities, and the exploration of alternatives to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport is critical to address this anticipated demand. And I've highlighted this here in my notes, through a variety of transportation strategies that may include the creation or expansion of other airports. So what this is saying is the bill is saying we got to look at multimodal opportunities to fix this problem. And RF, I apologize, but with all of these long words and long phrases going around, I've been shortening that to the Sea-Tac problem, but I don't want to make it sound like you're a problem, so please understand that if I say that out loud. The legislature, therefore, intends to replace the Commercial Aviation Coordinating Commission, that's the CAC, with the Commercial Aviation Work Group. And I just want to say that I think everyone believes that the CAC ended in an unsatisfactory place, and it has been referred to as the CAC. So my recommendation is that you don't call yourselves the COG, because that sounds too much like CAC. So you are the Commercial Aviation Work Group, and I myself have been using the term the work group, because once we get going, I think everyone will know what the work group is, just like everyone knows what the CAC is. So I'm going to continue to call you the work group, and I am not going to use the term COG, but you all can call yourselves whatever you want. Okay, so the legislature will replace the CAC with the Commercial Aviation Work Group, and here's your direction. Direct the work group to provide a comprehensive investigation of airport capacity in the state and the best way to address aviation needs in the context of overall state transportation needs in the next 20 years using independent, verifiable data. The State Commercial Aviation Work Group shall submit a progress report to the governor and the transportation committees of the legislature by July 1st, 2024. Originally, the bill said that. That date's in the past now. So in this last session, that date was changed to December 1st, 2024. But we're still racing towards that deadline. So the first report is due December 1st and annually thereafter. So that's what people are looking for you from you is an annual report starting in December. The first report of the work group shall include a list of areas that will not have further review, as the areas are in conflict with the operations of a military installation. Okay, then, and Eric, I'm going to plan on you to just advance the slides to follow me. Okay, so then...
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes.
Is that legislation in our books?
I believe that it is, yes.
And is the governor's veto a message in there? I'm just curious. The difference between the legislative version and the governor's veto and explanation for why.
Yes.
That's all in there.
So I found a summary of it in there, but not the actual bill text. And in our break, I was trying to pull up the bill text of what was vetoed and what was not vetoed. It's linked off of somewhere that I found.
We'll send that to you. There's several different versions. And the best that I've found is the original version that includes all the original language, crossed out the part that was vetoed. So it's all together on the same page.
I would love to see that in the governor's veto message.
Yeah. Very good. So, and this is not the entire veto message that I'm reading here, but part of it, what he says is, I am returning herewith without my approval as to sections 3, 5, 7, and 8 in gross substitute House Bill number 1791, entitled An Act Relating to Studying the Need for Increased Commercial Aviation Services. So that's the name of the bill. There were 4 complete sections that he vetoed, so not just a line or two, 4 sections. So that's pretty important. So then, in gross substitute, and this is again part of the governor's veto message, engrossed substitute House Bill 1791 creates a new state commercial aviation work group and directs them to study the need for additional airport capacity in Washington, including siting a new airport. Section 3 directs the work group to simultaneously consider expanding capacity at existing airports and siting a new airport. Section 3 is one of the sections that was vetoed, so that's not part of this. However, it's important for the state to first fully consider increasing capacity at existing airports throughout the state, excluding Sea-Tac, before it considers siting a new airport. So already through the bill, we've heard several references to all of transportation, multimodalism, and to basically exhaust all other options before we look at siting a new airport. So for anybody that thinks this is a redo of, that this is an airport siting commission, that's not the way I read it. Go ahead, Evan.
So to your point, I just pulled my phone back out and got out section 3. One of the little bit of challenge here, and I guess it might be something for the committee to consider, is the veto message talks, is just what Ann just read, but the governor vetoed all of section 3, which is all of the guidance is what we're supposed to do, everything, not just the part talking about concerns about that narrow issue. So, it's a conundrum as I read this.
Thank you.
That was my question, by the way.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because that's what I was hoping you guys would understand is it's up to you to decide what you're doing. This work group is trying to figure out how to solve this problem without a lot of direct guidance. So you're the policymakers, except that you are making recommendations. So yeah, I can't overstate how important your work is here. Okay, do you want to, next I have the kind of some discussion about who the voting members are and how that works. Do you want to talk some more about this, okay, so what are you supposed to be doing before we move on, or do you want me to move on?
Well, let's talk about the voting, what we're actually doing, okay? Because what I just heard from legal gentlemen over here says, we've been given direction, but we don't know what that direction is. Is that correct? It's not clearly defined. It's up to us to define what it is we're going to do.
Yeah.
So,
Please put the mic near
my
you.
goodness.
Just
Okay.
online can't
I
hear.
apologize.
No, it's okay.
So, all right, we're all here today to try to figure out what's our scope of work, so to speak. You know, how are we going to go about? Well, first of all, what do we think that our goal is today, and how are we going to define that? We need to define our goal before. I mean, you can talk about the voting process, but I think our scope of work, or what we intend to do, or what we'd like to see, and well, heck, I'm still back on the December 1st report. I mean, we haven't decided how are we going to work on that to turn in a report. I think it's too premature to actually say we're going to turn in a December 1st report at this point. But I think we need to figure out what our scope of work is, gentlemen and lady.
I think one of the first things we need to do, since this is a statewide look at aviation requirements, there's a tremendous amount of aviation facilities in the state. And I think we need to take a look at what they are, what their problems are, what the capacity of they are they, do they need them for every one? And we'll probably eliminate many of them because they're in great shape and they don't need any more. But if we're going to do a statewide look at what aviation needs, I think that's the first thing we need to do. Okay, what are the ones that we're going to look at? Look at the number of facilities that we have to look at, and then identify, do we need to do any more depth on each one of those? And that seems to be what our charge is, to look at what the needs are of the state. And if we don't know what's there yet, I mean, we know where there's some airports, but we don't know how they're doing, what the demand is, what demand could be if we did something to them, whether it's cargo or passengers or high-speed rail or whatever. Look at what Spokane's doing with bringing trains in there with cargo. So there's a number of things I think we need to be looking at before we start making any decisions on what we decide to do. If we don't know what we're talking about, we're just going to be having a lot of meetings and not really accomplish anything.
All right, I'm going to move ahead. I'm loving this, and my mind is percolating. So I'm going to share some more information that's going to spark you, I think, too. So the appointment of voting members, there we go. And we've heard a little bit about this already this morning. The work group will consist of 19 voting members. So far, 11 members have been appointed by the governor. There are 8 more yet to be appointed. The governor's office anticipates having the remainder of the positions appointed by September or so. So the positions yet to be filled are one representative from the airline industry or a business dependent upon air service, a citizen representative from Eastern Washington, and the entire language from the bill says from Eastern Washington, representing the public interest in the communities that are included in the work group's site research and understands the impacts of a large commercial aviation facility on a community. And that same language goes along with anywhere where it says citizen representative. So we need one more of those from Eastern Washington. A citizen representative, and this is basically at large, can live east or west. A representative from the freight forwarding industry, a representative from the trucking industry, a representative from a community organization that understands the impacts of a large commercial aviation facility on a community, and 2 representatives from statewide environmental organizations. Now, I want to comment on this because if I were one of you, I'd be saying, well, if you still need all these people, why are we even here today? And that was at the request of the governor's office because they had put out the applications for these positions, and there kind of got to be a lull where they weren't receiving more applications. And somebody had said, why aren't there people here representing environmental groups? Because no representatives of environmental groups applied. So the governor's office asked me to bring everybody together with the hope that the current appointees could help get the word out for more people to apply to the governor's office to be appointed to these positions. Since I was directed to pull this meeting together, they have already received some more applications, so they have what they're calling another tranche, but they are still looking for more applications. There's information on the governor's website about how you can apply. I think we also have that on our website, or any of us can provide that information. But yes, we are looking to fill out the work group. It's not even a full work group as long as we only have 11 of you here so far. And then I just added in here because I'm guessing some of you may have a question, because when you were appointed for a term. And that's the way the governor's office makes their appointments to boards and commissions. They stagger the terms so that not everybody has their term expiring at the same time. And so some of you ended up with terms that are going to expire, between now and the end of the year. Okay, all right. So it's the intent of Governor Inslee if he appointed you and your term has already expired or it's going to before January 13th, it's his intention to reappoint you so that another full 3-year term will start. And then after January 13th, then we'll have a new governor, and so we'll just have to see what happens then.
I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah.
I know we have 11 members, and how many are we short?
8.
We're short 8, okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then there are also non-voting members of the group. Those don't get appointed by the governor. They are invited by you all, by the voting members. The non-voting members will be invited by you to join. So while you will be making the invitations, they are specified in the bill how they are, who they represent, similar to with the voting members. So you will invite a representative of the Washington State Aviation Alliance. So I wrote, is it on the slide here? I think we can move to the next slide, Eric. Yeah. So Washington State Aviation Alliance represents Washington Airport Management Association, Washington Public Ports Association, Washington State Community Airports Association, Washington Pilots Association, Washington Seaplane Pilots Association, Washington Aviation Association, and actually there's a lot more of them. So when you get to that point, that's a decision you'll have to make, is how you'll decide how to go through that process of inviting a representative from the Aviation Alliance. Then you will invite 2 members from the Senate, with 1 each from the largest caucuses, which are Democrat, Republican, and the same thing with the House. And so there'll be 4 legislators who are non-voting members, and they've already asked that you just send your invitation to that Senate and House leadership, and they will tell you who they're sending to respond to your invitation. So those will probably be the 4 easiest ones. A representative from the Department of Commerce, and many of you know Robin Toth. She's the aerospace sector lead with the Department of Commerce, so I'm kind of assuming that she might be the invitee, but again, it's up to you guys. You can invite whoever you want from the Department of Commerce. A representative from the Division of Aeronautics of the Department of Transportation. That may be yours truly. A representative from an Eastern Washington Metropolitan Planning Organization, and so you've got a few to choose from there: Chelan Douglas Transportation Council, Yakima Valley Conference of Governments, or the Walla Walla Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization. Then, representative from a Western Washington Metropolitan Planning Organization. So those are the Whatcom Council of Governments, Skagit Council of Governments, Thurston Regional Planning Council, and Cowlitz-Wahkiakum Council of Governments. And then this one, I've just noted the large categories. A representative from an Eastern Washington Regional Airport, and then a representative from a Western Washington Regional Airport. I did the same sort of thing in my notes. I made a list of all of the airports that those could be. However, it dawns on me that regional airport is a little bit of a maybe a not precise term. When I made a list, FAA does have a system that they use to categorize airports. But I'm not sure that the legislators, when they wrote this bill, used the nippiest to decide which regional airport. So I'm going to say that that's probably up to you all to decide regional airport representation that you want to have. Yes?
On the Eastern Washington NPOs, I think you only named 3.
Did I?
There's a whole list of them.
Okay.
Like, because I know we have Benton Franklin Council of Governments in the Tri-Cities, and I didn't hear them, so I didn't know if those 3 are specific or if it can be
Any of them.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I did the same thing. I went online and I must have got a clinker of a page or something. So, yeah, the direction is Eastern Washington and Western Washington MPOs.
And I have a picture.
Mm-hmm.
This really sounds great that we're going to do all of this stuff. Who actually, if we decide send invitations to this group, who does that? Do you? Does the state? I'm not going to write the letters and send them out. I promise you that. So how does our function work as far as backup, administrative help, etc.?
I don't think I have it listed here, but that's a very good question, Oris. Washington Department of Transportation Aviation Division is your staff. We are your staff support. That's our role. And it's our goal to try really hard not to be bossy pants, and that's hard for me. But what our role is, what our job is to help you in however you need your help. So help keep me to that, please. All right.
Can I ask you
Please.
To decide some of that today?
Well, think about this. You are not a full committee yet, and would it be appropriate and or would you be comfortable doing some work when there are voting members who aren't here yet that may have different ideas?
I think the way we should go ahead is that you provide all that list of stuff to all of us, and as you get the new members, you get that to them, and then maybe at our next meeting we come up with a decision on, okay, let's send invitations to this, 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 and this. I don't think we are qualified or should do it right now, because a lot of the people we're going to invite, really those ones that are not here, might have a big influence on who we invite.
I'm going to keep going through some of this too, because I think some of this will add some clarity to some of what's going through your head right now too. So then you're going to have to develop a charter or your work rules, and that's basically what the legislation says is, and it's very short. I don't even think it's complete all one sentence. I think it's just a little phrase that you will develop your own rules about how you work. So on our agenda, we've kind of called that a charter. I think the charter from the CAC is in your binder, and that is not saying that we think you ought to operate like the CAC. It's just a starting point. But I've listed here, like, okay, do you want to just adopt Robert's Rules of Order? Do you want to come up with, some other rules of order? So that's part of what you have to decide is how you're going to operate, how are you going to make your decisions. And those can be a pretty important decision to make too. Then, I'm here right now because you don't have a chair. So then that's something that you also need to do is elect a chair. And I added some options in here for now until we have all of the voting members. Do you want to elect an interim chair to replace me here until we get to that point? When it comes time to elect a chair, do you want to have co-chairs? I think, Alicia, was that your suggestion of co-chairing?
Someone else said it, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a bad idea.
Or a chair and a vice chair, or this is your group, so you can decide how you want to do that.
Can I pause for
more second?
Please.
The only thing from a caveat perspective, the only thing I'm thinking about is, has it already been determined when our next meeting is?
Nope.
So if that's the case, I would not put off trying to elect at least a chair, especially since we don't know when our next meeting is going to be, and at least we can start the homework portion of what we're doing, knowing that we have leadership in place to at least get started.
Okay, and then actually I'm almost through with my background. The bill, so it specifies that the WashDOT Aviation Division will be staffed to you. Allocated budget to the Aviation Division to hire a consultant as needed to provide services that you might request. But what it says specifically is at the direction of the work group, so at your all direction, and as resources allow, so we'll have budgetary constraints, the Department of Transportation is authorized to hire consultants to assist with the review and research efforts of the work group. So this is what I want to tell you what I've done on this before. Before getting here. First off, I talked to the Attorney General's office about how we do this, like how do I hire a consultant at your direction? And what he said was, we've got to go through the hiring process because it's our budget, or consultant selection process. But you all have to tell us what it is you want us to hire that for, and you will be the ones actually selecting the consultant. So as kind of preliminary work, I've drafted a scope of work for a consultant team to be a facilitator, so not the chair of the group, but the one to make sure that we're staying on path, we're going in an orderly direction, that everybody is heard, everybody gets a chance to speak and to have their questions answered, and just to keep us on path. Also, this draft scope of work that I've put together for a consulting team would be able to provide subject matter experts on airspace, airport planning, highway planning, rail, environmental issues, anything that you could want. I haven't put the RFQ out for that yet because I feel like I need direction from you all, but I thought it was worthwhile for me to put some effort into that so that you didn't feel like, you got here brand new, still trying to figure out how your keys work and everything, and then, okay, now what do we do? So at any point, I'm ready to go ahead and advertise that RFQ. I know that there are people that are very interested already. Or you can say, no, Ann, we don't want to do that. We want to do something completely different. Also, part of what I had thought in here, because the budget that we have allocated for this is not going to be anywhere close to enough. And there's even people outside, I've heard from the public that, we want to ask for more money for public engagement. And kind of the discussions that I've had with legislative leaders and with the governor's office is that one of the first things that you should do, and you've been talking about this already, is put together a scope of work. And then once we have a scope of work, we can use that to develop a budget. And the legislature and the governor's office is anticipating a budget request from the work group for what you're going to need to do the rest of this work. So if you're worried about your first report due December 1st, you've got a lot of work to do before we even really start talking about the issues here. So be thinking about that. Yes.
In the past, I've participated in similar places at other airports, and at that time we were able to get a substantial amount of money from the FAA for just what we're talking about here is an evaluation of the needs. Has that been considered?
I've talked with the FAA about that, and we can continue conversations, but I will tell you that FAA gave us a substantial grant to pay for the site selection study that the CAC did. And so FAA is not really excited about now saying, okay, well, we're not doing that, we're going to do something else, and here's the funding. But that doesn't mean that that's not possible. And once you all get together and have your, this is our scope of work, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to accomplish it, it's definitely worth talking to the FAA again.
And will you send this before we make a decision? What you have written up as well, the RFP for the consultant?
Absolutely. And I want to add, in that RFQ, one of the, and I'm sorry I forgot to mention this before, one of the things I added in the RFQ, when I talked to the Attorney General about, okay, how am I supposed to go through this hiring a consultant at the direction of the work group? And I said, and after he gave me that answer, then I said, okay, so I'll be calling you more when we have more legal questions. And he said, no, actually, the Attorney General's office represents state agencies. And so they are not available to provide legal counsel to the work group because you all are a public body but not a state agency. So I wrote into my draft RFQ that they also have expertise in Washington state law to provide legal counsel.
Aren't we lucky to have a federal judge on our committee?
Evan, it sounds like, yeah.
Not me existing beyond the
I'd just like to add, but I don't know, follow up what Laura said about the book to the FAA for additional funds. We see projects all over the country that don't make it to where they need to go, and this is such an important factor in the national economy and our regional economy that I think that we have to have a serious discussion with the FAA about this as well. I don't want to just say that, they gave us one bite of the apple last program, but we need to go back to the apple again.
And I'm speculating, but the FAA money probably has strings attached to it. Do we know if there's like US DOT money that is sort of transportation planning more broadly that might include air, rail, bus? We can tap different agencies and tap DOT.
There may be, and once we come up with the scope of work, we're going to look into that. From my perspective, US DOT does not do a really great job of promoting and encouraging intermodal work like that, but there's a lot of interest in recognizing that that's the way we have to do it these days. And I would love for the state of Washington to be the poster child for how do we do integrated transportation planning. I see a lot of looks, so I don't want to go on.
I'm just confused. It's like we're here, we're half a group.
We're kind of skewed towards aviation. There's some that aren't. These new members are going to have probably way different views. We have none of the non-voting members that are going to bring different perspectives. And it's like, let's hurry up and do, but it's like, it just doesn't feel right. Like the whole group's not here. I think we focus on getting a chair in place, leave everything else kind of for the whole group to decide when we're together. Start reviewing documents, have a packet ready for the new members when they come on to hit the ground. But it's kind of hard to just move forward when we don't have the entire group together. Is there a time limit other than the report that's due? Are we under the gun for anything, or do we have to rush? I don't know.
As I said, the reason you're here today is because the governor's office asked me to bring you together with the hopes that you could help spur more people to apply to fill these vacancies that they still have.
have applications so we can at least have an idea of what we're looking for?
I don't know which ones don't have applications, but I put up on there the ones that are open still. So I would say it's a good bet to go ahead with all of those.
Will we get a copy of your presentation?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
another question and comment. So, the question would be, in that case, bouncing off of what Buck just said, can we ask staff to send us the ones that are currently empty, which ones have had applicants and which ones haven't, so that we can hit upon so we can kind of at least know which ones are still at a 0 versus ones that have 2 or 3 applications, just so that we're not pushing out certain ones that don't need the help as opposed to the ones that do need the help. And then, so that was my question. And then my comment was going to be, it's more of another administrative kind of thing, which ties into this, which is going back to what we were saying about terms. And I know at least Rich's is technically up already. And we got started late. Like I said, I know my appointment was effective the end of January. And I know I was one of the people that was nagging Christina about, are we going to have a meeting? What's going on? Because we're almost 6 months in. So my question would be, is there a plan to reset some of the appointments on their terms because it has taken maybe longer than what was anticipated for liftoff? Or is this the only time we're going to see Rich because technically he's up?
Yeah, no, the governor's intention is to reappoint everybody whose first term expires as long as Jay Inslee's still the governor. So like Rich, you'll be reappointed and then you'll have 3 years, and they are 3-year terms. But there is no time period for how long this will take. So if this seems like a lot of work, I'm expecting it'll be a number of years. So you all will have to think then about when you get to the point of having a whole 3-year term. If it takes longer than 3 years, will you reapply to try and stay with this, or are you? Will they have to then do another appointment to fill a place before the work's done? So those are all important things to think about.
And pause for a second. It looks like the video stopped for that, so we might need to get IT. Does it look like that light's on still?
It's off.
It's off. Yeah, it's off. Okay. We call IT.
Well, why don't we just take this time for a break, since the computer stuff stopped working anyway. We're not going to have our lunch for you work group members until a little bit after 11:30. So let's just say take a break and come back at 12:30. And Christina, can you put the lunch things up on the screen? Because we did do some research on where people can go to get lunch while we're waiting. So so we'll just take a break now, and we'll come back at 12:30 and continue this conversation.
Do we need a full hour? I'm just asking.
I don't know.
Do you need a full hour?
I don't need a full hour. Is Eric getting lunch now? Okay, so lunch will probably be here any minute. To be honest, I thought you all might want to have little one-on-one conversations that maybe would take an hour, but you're the bosses. How long do you want for lunch?
Can we get out early if we eat early?
Yes. I will tell you, somebody asked, when I look at this agenda, it looks like it'll only take a couple hours, and I'm like, might take a couple hours, might take until sundown. I really don't know. So
You were anticipating each of us were going to give half hours of meetings.
Well, we have to go somewhere for lunch. Y'all get to eat here, so I think an hour works.
okay, that's a very good point. Thank you. At 12:30, because 12:30 makes it a nice round number. All right, so we'll see you all at 12:30.